first down. McDonald, and he keeps his footing. Can he get there? 75-yard touchdown, McDonald.
McDonald, he's uncovered. He's just on the backside. He's got that little corner route. What a stiff arm.
Hey guys, Ralph here from the End Game Investor, and I've got James McDonald, Jim McDonald, CEO of Kootenay Silver, on the line with me today. And I've never spoken to Jim before, so I'm excited to get to know a new person and to get to know the CEO of a company that I am invested in and to learn more about the company. And to share it with all of the viewers who are interested in perhaps investing in this company. It's up to you, and you can make your decision after you hear this interview. So Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Rafi, and how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm a little bit tired, but I've got energy, and I'm actually pretty curious to learn more about what you're doing in Canada and in Mexico. So my first question is pretty basic. Most kids don't tell their parents that they want to dig for gold or silver for a living. So how did you end up here? How do people end up in mining and especially in an exploration company? You're literally digging for treasure. I mean, it sounds like every kid's dream, but how did you end up here?
Well, it goes back a long time ago now. I was in university taking a degree in geology, so that points you right to the earth sciences off the get-go. And being in Alberta, I was thinking along the lines of oil and gas industry, but then we had the famous oil and gas controls come, or can't remember what the name of the program was by the senior Trudeau government in the early 1980s.
You mean Pierre Trudeau?
Yeah, Pierre Trudeau brought in uh, damaging programs to the oil and gas industry, and overnight, all our summer jobs disappeared.
That family
And
hasn't been very good to your country, but his son
no,
has
not
been worse.
not very good at all. So it's a name hopefully we don't see come up again in the politics of this country. But so
Yeah.
that caused me to be looking around for a summer job suddenly in the middle of exams in spring, and there was a posting on in the geology department, literally on a full scrap piece of paper, saying that this company was looking for summer helpers in British Columbia for hard rock mining, which is the metals end of the geology business. So
Mm.
I phoned and got the job, summer job. It was a great job. I was fascinated by the geology. I was fascinated by the metals and the exploration, and then never looked back and never went into the oil and gas industry at the end of the day. So it's just kind of fortuitous how it happened, but that's life.
But from a summer job, you just ended up, I mean, how did you end up the CEO of an exploration company? Like, where were you before?
Yeah, so what happened then is about a year later, I graduated and got a 4-month contract with a big mining company called Noranda. At the time, it was a big Canadian mining company. And then that contract just continued for the next 4 years. But during the first year, I got exposure to the biggest gold discovery that had been made in Canada in decades called Hemlo. They sent me down there to work. And it was still during the sort of discovery phase. That was absolutely incredible. Talk about a boom town environment. There were 15 or 16 drill rigs on the site, all going at the same time. There were drill crews, there were mining crews starting to sink shafts, there were line cutters, geophysicists, and it was like the Wild West. They didn't have the internet back in the day, but you had the radio, and the core would come into the core shack, and the core helpers who organized the core and washed it and measured the recovery and everything else, not geologists. Today we'd call them technicians. And they had a chalkboard going, and twice a day the local radio station would give all the stock quotes of all the junior companies that were in on this play in the surrounding area. It had extensions of the discovery, the trend and everything else. including the companies that were in the middle of making the discovery. So twice a day, the radio station would give the quotes on the stocks, and these guys would erase the board and put the new prices up twice a day.
Hmm.
And so I kind of got interested in that. And like just months before, these were penny stocks, and now Golden Goliath and Golden Scepter, they were something like 14, $15. And then the company sent me back to British Columbia where I was hired uh, same fall. And I was out doing a mapping program, came back from the bush on a Friday, and the district geologist said, "Do you want to go on a property exam and look at this new discovery somebody's made in a logging cut? It's a Kuroko style discovery." Yeah, sure. I'm keen as anything to go out and see the new geology. So out we went, and it was the first time I'd met a promoter, and it was Larry Ray
Hmm.
and Ray Gold, and it was a Samatosum discovery. Not yet drilled, obviously. It was just a showing in the logging cut. And he was telling me, look, this news not out is coming out next week. My stock closed at 90 cents. And so I'm thinking to myself, what could, this is interesting. I just saw in Hemplo all these stocks going crazy, these penny stocks. And he's made this new discovery. Um, and next week when it comes to trade again, it'll be well, maybe I should buy some. I've got more money than I ever had in my whole life. I've been working all summer, and no, I wasn't even didn't even have an apartment to rent at that stage. I was living out in the field camps. So on the way back to the field, I phoned my father. I didn't even have a broker. So I stopped at a payphone. I said, "Look, Dad, there's this stock here. I think I want to buy some. I don't have a broker, but if you buy some for me, I'll pay you back and we'll see what happens." So I headed onto the project in the woods.
Hmm.
And we had no radio, we had no phone, we had no communication. Once a week, somebody go get groceries and come back with a newspaper, and then you flip open the newspaper, the business section, you look for the quotes in the stock.
Yeah, I remember that. I was on the tail end of that when there's still this tiny little things in the business section. I remember that. Yeah, when
Yeah,
everything was in eighths and sixteenths and 132. Yeah.
yeah. So that was how we got the news of what's going on with all these stocks. So I was looking at this stock that I asked my father to buy. Well, it's starting to go up. 90, it's $1.20. And I was thinking at the time, oh man, what could I make? Maybe 15, 20%? That'd be pretty good.
Hmm.
Long and the short of it is that it by the time it came out of the bush again, stock was I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a few dollars. And it was a big play suddenly. And so I end up selling it. And I thought to myself, wow, here I have been working for 6 months straight, pretty much with no break. And I just made more money in 3 weeks than I did in 6 months of hard work.
Pushing two buttons at the right time. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
got bit. I got bit by the gold bug at that point, the discovery bug,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I got pointed into the junior resource side of the business a few years later, and joined Lease Brothers out of Vancouver in their first venture, and that led to some pretty good successes with the White Knight Resources and Mansfield Minerals. We were working in Argentina and Nevada mostly.
Hmm.
And then in the late 90s, I joined a couple other guys we got a shell company together and started looking for gold deposits to buy in like 1999,
Hmm.
2000. Because the gold was $300. It was on its
Yeah.
way to 265. We didn't know that at the time. And discovered deposits were being given away by mining companies. Like they were being sold at ridiculously low prices. So the long and short of that story is we put in a bid on this thing in Mexico called the Mulatos deposit that Placer Dome and Kennecott were selling.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, we won the bid, and lots of backstory there of how that happened. But luckily for us, we did, and it was 12.5 million dollars to buy 100%. They transferred the concessions to us for a $50,000 down payment. And then we had these debentures to pay them back with over 4 years. And in
Hmm.
the first year, it was pretty heavy and fast. And the gold went from 280 to 265. The Mulatos deposit at that time had a feasibility on 2.2 million ounces of gold within a 4 point X something million resource.
Hmm.
Unbelievable. They're selling it for 12.5 million. Even more unbelievable, we couldn't get anybody to give us any money to buy it. So
Right.
we
Not much has changed.
no, so we ended up we did a JV deal with another junior called Alamos Minerals, John McCluskey and Chester Miller.
Hmm.
And and John McCluskey had very strong financial connections, and he is about the same age as me, but his part of the business was in corporate development and money raising. So, and then Chester Miller, of course, was very famous for the discovery of the Afton deposit in BC and also being a pioneer of heap leach technology and had formed Glamis Gold, etc. And so the long and short of it is that with them, uh, they brought the actual mining expertise we didn't have at the time, and then the access to money. And we were able to secure the project and merge the companies and form Alamos Gold.
Hmm.
And so then I stepped off that board a long time ago in about 2012. So we merged the companies about 2.5 years later. We were in commercial production. And a couple years after that, we were doing about 200,000 ounces a year, and gold had gone from 265 up to over $1,000 in the next sort of 5 years. And that mine was making incredible amount of money. It's had a 10-year mine life in 2003, and today it still has a 10-year mine life. So they keep finding more. And
Okay.
that's kind of my backstory.
Right. So there you have a lesson that just because somebody thinks that a mine has a certain life, it can be extended many times depending on what you actually find there. I mean, I don't know what the statistics on that are, but the thing is that's an issue with gold and silver investors, the bullion investors, the ones who know about who understand money and banking. We don't really understand mining, and it's really not our expertise. So we're kind of I'm just speaking personally. We're kind of like, scared to jump into things that we don't know. And the most important thing is to get people that we trust or referred by people that we trust that we know aren't pulling our leg or just trying to do a pump and dump. And I've seen that many times in the mining industry. So I'm very careful when I establish a relationship with a company like yours, that I understand who the people are. And on that front, I just wanted to ask, with Kootenay. So, I mean, the way there's basically two options here with any explorer, really. Um, and you can answer it. Maybe you're going both directions, maybe hedging. I don't know, but is the goal with Kootenay considering, and this is a broad question about the company itself, considering the assets that you have and the resources you have to develop them? Is the main goal of the company to develop them to a point where they become an interesting asset for a bigger company to acquire and develop? Or are you really trying to go for it all and develop it yourselves and really become your own thing? What's your focus?
So we've set the company up to sell these assets. We get them to advanced stage. So that's our objective, is to bring in a mining company to take them over. But having said that, the best way to make that happen is take all the steps along the way that you need to actually go into production. So you're ever advancing the work you're doing. We're in the middle of our fourth discovery now, which looks to be the best one, and because of the grade and widths that we're seeing there, really high grades. And so we'll keep advancing that. We're still at drill stage here, about come out with a maiden resource. And that's the first step. Get a maiden resource, put a stake in the ground. This is how big it is, and it's getting bigger. And then you keep drilling, make it bigger. Start doing your economic studies. Start doing all your metallurgy. Start getting your land agreements in place, which we have now, and all the various environmental studies that you need along the way. So you're taking all the steps and getting all the permission and permits and social license and technical data that you need to actually go into production. And that adds value every step of the way. And then at the end, that's going to make it more valuable and attract more buyers. And if you're in a position where maybe you're not getting the price you think that you need for it, then you can think about, well, let's pivot and build a mining team and take it into production at that stage. But you, if you do all the work along the way, that you give yourself that option at the end.
Uh, so at what silver price do you think Kootenay would really be able to attract a big fish or someone to really develop it? I mean, there's two factors. There's how much resource do you have in your discoveries, and also what the price of silver is and how attractive those discoveries are. So, what do you think is a combination that you're really realistically seeking here in terms of the size of the discoveries and with the price of silver being a factor? Where's the sweet spot?
Yeah, so uh, it's some varied, it'd be kind of varied answer because we have three different deposits right now, and we're drilling our fourth
Hmm.
discovery, so our fourth deposit that we don't have a resource estimate on yet. So they're all a little bit different. But the existing projects are Promontorio, La Negra, and La Ciguera, and they total 214 million ounces of silver equivalent M&I, and then another almost 55 million in the inferred category. And two of those, La Negra and La Ciguera, are pretty much pure silver plays. And when you look at a paper financial model, which is very high level, it starts to look pretty interesting at these prices that approach the mid 30s. And so and then Promontorio is a big polymetallic silver, gold, lead, zinc deposit, and it'll require a higher price somewhere. So in the last approximately 18 months, have refreshed all of the resource reports on those properties because we're anticipating a very strong silver bull market here that began, we believe, about a year ago. We had the first breakout from the low 20s into now the low 30s. And then the next leg maybe will take us through 40, and that will set it up for a big run through the old highs, is our view on silver. So we've prepared these projects to be advanced and worked on, around now actually, but when the silver price gets going again, the next leg, and we'll get value in the market for the work we do there. And in the meanwhile, we've been very focused the last 4 years on drilling the Columba discovery because of the grades we're seeing there. As long as we get the size, and the size is there and we can define the size, the grades and widths we're seeing are the kind of grades and widths that can be economic at any silver price. And so grade is king, that's a saying in the business. And right now we've drilled over 200 holes. We've just finished a big program of 20,000 meters of drilling that we started last year. And so that brings us to a total of 50,000 meters in total drilled at Columba, at this new discovery. And so we're still waiting on assays. We'll get the final assays from that 20,000 meter program in the next 1 or 2 weeks and put that out. And then we're working on our geologic vein models in preparation for a maiden resource. And the zones are all wide open for expansion, and many veins have not even been drilled yet. So, in other words, whatever our maiden resource looks like, it's going to grow and get bigger because everything's open to expansion still. So that the follow on is a whole bunch more drilling for later in the year.
I was the host of something called the Silver Report on Arcadia Economics channel. That's Chris Marcus. You've probably heard of him.
Hmm.
And they had a sponsor, Fortuna Silver Mines, and I spoke about them almost every week. And I have these memories that they had this big mine in Mexico, the San Jose mine, I think it was called. And they had these huge problems with this environmental minister in Mexico that was trying to shut down silver mines. I mean, what I understand that your projects are in Mexico and you're headquartered in Canada. Um, ha, can you just give us a short overview of what the political situation now is in Mexico? I know there's a new administration there. The environmental minister is that regime still giving problems to silver mines? What's the outlook on just how the government relates to silver there? Do you expect an easier time than Fortuna had? What's going on there?
Yeah, so we're we are working in the northern states of Chihuahua and Sonora, both very uh, pro-mining states. And the new discovery, Columba, is in Chihuahua State, and one of our resource properties called La Siguera is also in Chihuahua. So uh, we've had excellent results in getting our permits or work permits, exploration permits at this stage for drilling. No problem at all. Been very good. The last administration was pretty antagonistic towards the mining industry. This administration is quite different. It's not just words they're speaking of pro sort of positive to the mining industry, but actual actions taking place, mine permits being granted, changes to regulations allowing big write-offs on your capital investment in the first year up to I think 56%. So real tangible things happening. So it's quite a marked change. And I don't know the details of the Fortuna situation, but did they that when that was happening with Fortuna, I don't know why they were having so much trouble there or what the story behind it was, but in the country in general at that point in time, it, most other companies weren't having any issues. So it kind of there's a lot that can go into uh, what happens with permitting. You got the governor of the state, you've got the local people, if they're supporting or not supporting, or if you happen to be in an environmentally sensitive area, that's going to be a different issue than if you're not in an environmentally sensitive area. So a lot of these things come into play. So on high level, the new administration in Mexico is much more favorable towards mining, and they've actually taken tangible action to show that they mean it. And so there's been a real shift that's quite positive. And in terms of our projects, we're in two of the best states for pro mining and developing something in Mexico. So pretty well situated that way.
Tell me what you think about the silver market in general. What are you expecting? I mean, I can tell you as a monetary analyst, I'm worried about the complete collapse of the dollar, and I think that brings silver up, to 50 or 100. It could happen really quickly. We've seen it happen three times before in the last century. And it could happen again. It could happen again any time. And what I'm worried about most is that if it happens again, silver at 50, 75, $100 is not necessarily a great thing for society. It's a very dangerous thing because it means that fiat money is not doing very well, and that means that international commerce or even local commerce is very disrupted, and a lot of people have a lot of trouble getting their basic needs. So what do you see going on in the silver market over the medium term as you're trying to get this resource developed enough for a big miner to take a bite?
Yeah, so as you point out, we've got a lot of structural issues with the fiat currencies across the world, and we've had some in the last 15 years here now. We had the financial crisis and an unprecedented injection of new capital into the system, printed money,
Hmm.
and then they never stopped. And they continued to, and by the time they started to slow it down, we got hit with COVID. And then you had multiples of more money injected into the economies in a much, much shorter time frame. So it's no wonder the inflation took off the way it did.
Well, it's okay. That
And
saved the entire planet. Thank God for the lockdowns and the inflation, you know. Otherwise, we'd all be dead from COVID, obviously.
so, so so it's got us today, where the purchasing value of any of the fiat currencies has just been crushed. And silver always follows the gold chart. And you got the famous gold to silver ratio that people look at. And over the last 20 years, the median line on that ratio is approximately 60. Right now, we are floating around close to 100. So it's on the historic high side by quite a bit. Uh, when silver, you mentioned the last two times it's uh, touched $50 here since about in 1980. And when that happened, the ratio was under 30. And so you see it revert to the mean and you'll see it shoot past in the other direction. Uh, Crustal abundance in the ground is something like 14 silver ounces to one gold ounce. And then the production is even less than that, the production out of the ground. And then with silver, you've got this huge industrial demand. So when industrial demand starts to hit the monetary demand, you get a real kind of inelasticity in this explosive upside in silver. We haven't seen that yet on this cycle, but it's going to happen in our view. And but getting back to that gold chart, that gold chart is since 2000 and about one is going just one direction like this. And that's all because of the fiat currency. So you look at back when we bought the Mulatos deposits or with another group, another company. This was in the December 2000. And you could go out and buy an ounce of gold for about 300 to 280 US. And today that ounce of gold is 3,000. And today, what would that $300 buy you?
Uh, but what would $300 in fiat currency buy you? Maybe a week of food.
Yeah,
Not much
so
more than that.
not a lot. But the ounce of gold you bought 25 years ago is now $3,000.
Yeah.
So it is very truly a store of wealth, and it protects your assets that way, and that's the importance of it. And silver is the poor man's gold, as they say, and it's sort of the cousin to gold, and it does the same thing.
Investors have an option of buying Kootenay, or sorry, Kootenay, and getting silver at a discount. Now, assuming your plans are executed as they should be, taking a median estimate of how much silver Kootenay has under its control, what is the discount that they'd be buying silver at now? And assuming your plans come to fruition, like what can an investor expect to see, let's say, like, medium to long term, 5, 10 years out? Why is Kootenay a good vehicle through which to get discounted silver?
Well, we have a lot of silver in the ground, and identify, the resources we have don't have any demonstrated economic viability to be built into a mine. Two of them are really close at this silver price. And so it's a leverage to silver price with silver ounces in the ground. And we're trading at roughly 30 cents an ounce in the ground. And in a silver market, when you get a real bona fide silver bull market going, we're in the beginning of that in our belief. But when you get into that market, bull market a little further, those ounces in the ground become, this is a general rule of thumb, they'll be start trading from between $1 and $2 in the ground just because they're in the ground. That's what the market values them at. This is looking at historic, historic record of what's happened in other silver bull markets. And then it can actually far exceed that. And then it gets down to sort of the quality ounces too, how potentially economic they are, how high margin they might be in a mining scenario, then they're valued higher, then they'll be valued much higher. And there's even companies now that are junior resource companies are trading in excess of $3 an ounce in the ground. And so that's just gives you an idea of what it could look like. Outside of what you might be selling an asset for once you demonstrate its economic viability. Typically nowadays you have to get to at least a preliminary economic assessment PEA study for a mining company to take you out, typically.
Hmm. And where are you on the path to that these days?
Well, with regard, we're very focused on Colombia because the grades and widths we're getting there. We're getting these incredible, some cases in excess of almost 2 kilos, 1,700 grams per ton over almost 10 meters. When you think about a lot of the mines in Mexico, they're being mined are 1.5 to 2 meters, narrow stuff.
Hmm.
And we've got some of these veins where we're getting consistently 5 to up to true width, 40 meters of continuous good grade or high grade silver mineralization. So really incredible. So we're quite focused on that. But we're just getting to our maiden resource. That's the first step.
Hmm.
And so after your maiden resource, you go out and you start to grow it more, and you could get to your PA within, you know, if you had the financing all in place, and nothing slows you down because of that, you could conceivably go from a maiden resource to a PEA in 18 months. And sometimes quicker, I've seen it quicker, but that's a reasonable time frame to look at. Yeah, and so that's kind of where we are. But on like on the other projects, specifically La Negra and La Ciguera, especially La Ciguera, we have enough work there to do a PEA, and that could take maybe 4 months when we pull the trigger.
Hmm.
So we'll look at it internally, just do some financial models, see where it might sit and where it makes sense to pull the trigger on a PA. In other words, at what silver price would we actually want to do one and publish it? 'Cause you want to be able to put one out that's going to show pretty strong economics when you get there. So, in the case of La Ciguera, let's say silver really took off and broke $40
Hmm.
and had sustained momentum, keeping it over 40. Well, then it's going to make a lot of sense for us to look at doing a PEA on La Ciguera and probably La Negra as well. And you can do that for relatively low cost compared to what a big drilling program is. So we've just prepared these assets to be advanced in such a manner at that kind of time.
Mm. Well, is there anything else you want to close with? Let potential investors know that we haven't covered here. And I just wanted to thank you for coming on and really it, educating me about a company that I'm invested in, because the more I know, the better.
Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot. Obviously we have a lot of leverage to silver in the ground, and then this new discovery is really exciting. It could work at any kind of silver price. So really well set up for what we think is the early stages of a silver bull market here. And we've also just started trading on the QTCB in the US, which gives us access to a lot more investors down there. So that's pretty positive. So I just might mention that on the Canadian Toronto Venture Exchange, where our symbol is KTN, and on the OTC in the US, it's KOOYF. So you can find us at one of those two places.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim McDonald, CEO of Kootenay Silver. Thanks for coming on, and looking forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thanks, Rafi. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
McDonald!
Are you kidding me? Wow.
And the well-traveling
Silver.
nation loves it.
Look at that. Right there. Throws him out of the club. Connie, the veteran,